Good evening, and welcome to the third installment in a series of 6 virtual town halls being presented by the New River Valley Public Health Task Force. We appreciate you welcoming us into your homes or wherever you may be viewing this event. We're joined again this week by Doug Williams, who is providing sign language interpretation services. Thank you, Doug, for your assistance with our series. You will learn as we move through our program. The New River Valley is blessed with leaders who care deeply about our communities, and they truly work well together. As a result, our citizens should feel confident as we collectively navigate COVID-19 in the New River Valley. My name is Kevin Bird, and I'm the Executive Director of the New River Valley Regional Commission, and I have the pleasure of serving as moderator for the virtual town hall series. The New River Valley Public Health Task Force I referenced earlier has been hard at work since early March, aligning resources and deploying strategies to support the public health needs of our region. Nearly 3 months ago, local law enforcement, fire and rescue organizations, hospital and public health officials, local government managers, local public information officers, education officials, and others began to develop and activate regional plans for the COVID-19 pandemic. Since then, the New River Valley Public Health Task Force has been working through phase 1 mitigation, providing increasing levels of testing to all communities in the region, and securing testing resources and protective equipment for frontline medical and public safety personnel. Each week since March, the task force has provided scalable drive-through test sites across the NRV with faster turnaround for test results. The task force also prioritized clear and consistent messaging and an abundance of public information, a result of which is this 6-week series of virtual interactive town halls, with our third one tonight. Our series continues this week with the topic of local government. The panelists assembled this evening are directly involved with the New River Valley's response to COVID-19. In my role at the Regional Commission, I work closely with this group of leaders, and I can attest, they have a long history of collaboration, and the relationships they've forged over the years are serving our communities well right now. The questions they'll be addressing were submitted by residents across the region prior to tonight's town hall. For more information about the series and to submit questions for future panels, please visit www.montva.com/NRV Town Hall. You may also submit live questions via Twitter using the hashtag NRVStrongerTogether, and we'll answer them as we're able with time permitting. Before we get underway with this week's panel discussion, I'd like to take a moment and thank all the EMS providers across the region. May 17th through 23rd is National EMS Week, and the theme is Ready Today, Preparing for Tomorrow. The theme was established before COVID-19, and it rings very true, as their services in our communities has been instrumental in the New River Valley response to the pandemic. So thank you for your service. As I introduce each panelist, they'll provide a brief introductory statement. First up this evening, we have David Ridpath, who's a Radford City Manager.
Good evening. Thank you, Kevin. It's a pleasure to be with everybody tonight. I've served with the city of Radford for a number of years now. It's my hometown. Served as planner, community development, public relations, a number of different things, and have been the city manager for the last 11 years.
Great. Thank you, David. Next up, we have Jonathan Sweet, Pulaski County Administrator.
Yes, I've been in local government for nearly 20 years, Chief Administrative Officer for over 17 years, and here in Pulaski County for over 3.5 years.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. Next, we have Terry Morris. She's the Floyd County Administrator.
Good evening. My name is Terry. I've been with Floyd County for 36 years this week, actually. I've served as Assistant County Administrator for 31 years, and I've served as the County Administrator for the last 5 years.
Great. Thank you, Terry. Next is Chris McLarney, who's the Giles County Administrator.
Good evening, Kevin. Really appreciate this opportunity for all of us to get together once again and speak. I've been with Giles County now for 26 years. Started out as the county engineer here, and about 20 years ago, reverted to the job of county administrator. So appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Next is Mark Verneal, the Blacksburg Town Manager.
Thanks, Kevin. I've been with the town of Blacksburg for 25 years. I actually started out in planning like David. I've been in the manager's office for about the past 20 years, and I've been the town manager for 15.
Thank you, Mark. Next is Randy Wingfield, Christiansburg Town Manager.
Hi, Randy Wingfield, been with the town of Christiansburg for a little over 22 years now. Also formerly served as planning director and assistant town manager, and I've been in the town manager's role for about 3 years now.
Great. Thanks, Randy. Next is Craig Meadows, Montgomery County Administrator.
Good evening, everyone. Glad to be with you this evening. I've been in local government for over 30 years. 17 of that has been in Virginia. I was city manager in the city of Bedford for 7 years, and I've been in Montgomery County starting on my 11th year. So glad to be with you this evening.
Great. Thank you, Craig. And we also have Michael Geary, Montgomery County Emergency Services Coordinator.
Thank you, Kevin, and good evening, everyone. I serve Montgomery County as the Emergency Services Coordinator in a twofold role. First as the emergency and second as a liaison for the fire and rescue agencies within the county.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Well, thanks to each of our panelists for joining us this evening and providing insight on the response to COVID-19 in the New River Valley. Our first question this evening is about New River Valley Public Health Task Force. And the first question is, what role does local government play in the task force?
Well, Kevin, I can touch on that. The task force was really created by all of our emergency service leaders here in the New River Valley. Really back in mid-February, they recognized that the coronavirus was starting to work its way across the country, and that we needed to start to prepare. And they set it up originally like your traditional emergency operations center. But within a few days, they really realized that this crisis was going to require a lot more expertise. And they pulled in the health department, the hospitals, all of the local government managers, public communicators, the school systems, universities, and really brought together this multidisciplinary team to look at how we respond as a region. And quickly, we all realized that we're stronger to work on this together as a region than to work on it all individually. So the local governments are right in the middle of that and participate on that task force. Now, this group today is a subset of the local government managers that work in the communities here in the New River Valley, the 4 counties, and then the city of Radford, and then all the towns that are in the counties. This group, and I'll give Kevin credit, Kevin does a great job of pulling us together regularly. Even before this crisis occurred, we would meet, about 4 or 5 times a year. And Kevin was kind of the entity, the group, the person who brought us all together. Well, we realized in early March that we needed to be talking a lot more frequently. So this group here is meeting 3 days a week on a conference call for an hour. Kevin facilitates those calls. And what that's allowed us to do is to share ideas, share best practices, look at, as the crisis started to hit our area, we were able to coordinate how we ramped down our services. And then after about a month, this group really turned into what we're calling the recovery team, which is the group that's really looking at how does our region recover? How do we come out of this and get our economy back open and also protect public health? I know that Chris with Giles County, he's on the calls with the task force every day, so he may want to add a little bit to what I've said.
Yeah, I think that you summed it up really well, Mark. But I'm an emergency services coordinator in Giles as well as county administrator, so I do sit on those calls, and I tell you, it's really been an incredible effort by all of those folks, all the emergency services coordinators, the folks that are involved from the hospital. All of our healthcare systems are represented there. EMS, fire, police, really great law enforcement representation there. Our health department, and certainly couldn't go through this without thanking Dr. Bissell. She's our local director and has done an amazing job. But that entire group, I guess until 2 weeks ago, they were meeting 7 days a week, 8 a.m. every morning, and just a tremendous effort. These people really care about their communities, and it's been amazing to watch them all pull together. It's been something to be part of, and obviously there's some great work coming out of that. And I think we'll probably get around to discussing some of those actions that have come out of that later tonight. But I think other than that, you summed it up, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you all. I know as we were having our conversations as the local government managers group in early March, you all were trying to sort through a whole lot of information. And one of those was declaring local states of emergency. Can you all walk us through what that process looks like and really the purpose of declaring a state of emergency locally?
Sure, Kevin, I'll be glad to start with that. A state of emergency just allows a locality to have some flexibility in being able to move forward with addressing issues. Most of us that have boards and councils, those groups meet once or twice a month. But when you're under a situation with an emergency, you need to be able to move very quickly to address concerns. You may have to set special rules. You may have to make procurement decisions. And one of the things I'll say in Montgomery, by issuing the state of emergency, we were able to move very quickly to begin to get items necessary for testing supplies and those sorts of things, which allowed us to be able to move forward into the testing phase that many of us have been participating in. State of emergency has to be ratified by the elected officials, so it's not something that as Director of Emergency Services I can just do and take off running. But it does allow us a lot of flexibility and the ability to address concerns right away. And Michael Gary, who's on board as our emergency services coordinator, Michael may want to mention some of the things we were able to do quickly once we declared that state of emergency.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. There are a couple things that a state of emergency does for a locality. The biggest and most important thing that it does is it allows a locality access to resources that typically they wouldn't be able to get access to easily. And so some of the resources that we've been able to pull together out of this have been medics from the National Guard to actually come down and assist with our drive-through testing sites. And typically we wouldn't have access to anything like that, or it would be heaps of paperwork to be able to get to that point. And the second and maybe more obvious thing that it does is it lets the public know that it's a very serious matter and to take proper precautions and understand what's going on. And that's essentially what the local state of emergency does.
And Kevin, if I can just add one thing to that as well. As we moved into that phase of this pandemic, all of us coordinated with each other as to when states of emergency were going to be issued. One of the many things that we've done through this pandemic is work together very closely regionally. And within a matter of days, I think everybody in the region had declared. So we wanted to coordinate those efforts so we could move as quickly as possible as well.
Well, I'm sure following the heels of making the decisions of declaring a local state of emergency comes decisions about facilities. And how did you all arrive at making decisions about closing facilities that you're in charge of overseeing?
Kevin, I'll take that. Of course, closing facilities is never easy. I think the panel would all agree. There's so many things you've got to move forward on. You've got so much momentum. You've got to get everybody notified and make decisions. And in this case, this was probably one of the fastest moving, constantly changing things that I think we've ever been associated with and new for relatively everybody. But, we worked together, compared notes on some things, and, we had a lot of guidance using the executive orders that, of course, came up from the governor's office, as well as looking at Virginia Department of Health, the CDC, BDM, all gave good guidance as to what we needed to do. And of course, we moved quickly to try to get facilities closed. Although I don't really think anybody was ever, other than gymnasiums and libraries being closed, I think all the operations stayed open. We're essential service, so we kept everything going, police, fire, all those kinds of things. So nothing really changed along those lines. It's just, it was a different way of doing things. And it'll be a different way when people come back and see the government's, is more, we had some teleworking, we handled meetings a little differently, things like that. But as the public starts seeing us re-engaging things like plexiglass, and we've put some outdoor walk-up windows in several of our buildings, making sure that the employees and the public are safe by providing PPE, and making sure everything is well cleaned and instill that confidence in the public to re-engage in these facilities. In the meantime, and during this time, and going forward with this different way of doing business, of course, public engagement. We've had more meetings that have been Zoom related, teleconferences, things like that. Also, in moving forward, we've had more trying to encourage more submittal of information electronically, drop boxes, email, phone calls. So trying to minimize that contact to protect both the safety of the public and the safety of our employees has been hallmark in making decisions on closings.
Right. Well, as you were getting there talking about closing, you immediately started talking about operations next. And I'm sure everybody's wondering, when is reopening going to start happening? I know, Jonathan, you guys have worked really hard in Pulaski County and focused on reopening as soon as possible. Do you want to talk about your process so far?
Yes, we are focused first on the health and safety of our citizens and the health and safety of our employees, and of course our business community as well. We are looking at accepting the public back into all of our county facilities on the 26th. So we're preparing. We've got all of our public touch points set up with plexiglass and other safety features, and all of the employees are back in the office now, and I think morale's high, and they're excited to receive the public and to do so safely. Our business community, we've got some feedback from them. They've had some challenges interpreting all of the guidelines and really evaluating that to see if it makes sense for them to even open in phase one. And we've seen a lot of businesses choose to do this and take advantage this phase one reopening opportunity. The county had received so many calls this past Friday about, particularly from restaurants, about outdoor dining, and the response from the citizens patronizing these restaurants were so great that we really had to respond quickly to expanding outdoor dining opportunities, and our building department did a really fantastic job going out on site and providing what they needed to authorize them to expand their seating. So the moral of the story is everyone is responding as quickly as we possibly can to support our citizens, to support service delivery, to support small business and the reopening. We're excited about the reopening. We've been in this, we're all in this together phase. And I think we're transitioning to we're all going to get out of this together phase, and really supporting each other pragmatically and creatively to do that.
Thank you, Jonathan. How about others on the panel? How are you all approaching that decision about reopening your facilities?
And I can add to that, and I'd like to plug the Working Smart, Working Safe guidebook that the task force put out. We had a subgroup, kind of a sub-task force that was chamber directors, our tourism directors, all of the business organizations, merchants groups directors that pulled that together. And it really gives good guidance on different business types on how they can open safely, how they can keep their employees safe, and also keep their customers safe. So that's a good resource, and you can find that on our websites that's out there. We're also in Blacksburg, we're working to expand outdoor dining opportunities, working with the restaurants. So the restaurateurs, they're of course busy running their restaurants every day. They had to adapt quickly, go to online ordering and pickup. So we put out some information this week that really pulls all the guidelines together from the health department, from the governor's office, and from Virginia ABC, that to help them be successful as they start to open up outdoor dining in our community. Our staff is going out and meeting with specific restaurants to help them space their tables out, and give them pointers on how to succeed. So if there's any restaurateurs out there that end up watching this, I'd encourage them to get in touch with us or get in touch with your local government, and they'll help you successfully set up your outdoor dining so that you can start to bring some customers back in person to your place of business. I think another important point to make, and I think our communities have really stepped up and done this, is it's really important to support your local businesses now. The business has drastically changed for them, and they're doing a lot of creative things to still provide service to the community. But it's more important than ever that we, instead of ordering things online from some faraway land, to shop local, buy what you can local, and certainly support the local restaurants as well.
And Kevin, I'll just, Mark, absolutely, and to stay local as well. Consider vacating with a staycation in the New River Valley in your respective community, or one of our beautiful neighboring communities. There's so many staycation opportunities, and we should take advantage of those. Now's the perfect time.
Well, do others on the panel have government offices opening up soon? Do you have any dates on those to share? And also saying we don't know quite yet is a fine response.
Kevin and Floyd, we actually opened our offices back up on Monday with safeguards in place. We do have masks available for visitors for their use if they'd like to wear them. We ask that they do. We don't demand, but the one item that I've had more questions on than even when we were going to reopen is about our recycling program, because it's so strong in our community, and we had pulled all of our recycling boxes back in because our employees sort each recycled piece by hand. We felt the need to do that, to pull those boxes back in, you know, just to protect our employees. So we will make a decision by the end of the month as to when we would return those out.
Great.
And I'd just add, Kevin, in Montgomery County, we're looking probably a little later than a few others. We're probably looking at a mid-June reopening for for citizens. Our employees are already back in the office. We've been utilizing telework to have some employees working in shifts. We've tried not to have everybody here all at the same time. One of the blessings that we have in Montgomery County is we have a very large government center, which allows for a lot of space for various activities. But when you talk about a pandemic and talk about reopening to the public and determining how to guide the public's interaction through that building, it's created quite a few challenges. So we're not moving quite as fast. We do have a reopening committee that's evaluating things right now, but I would say in Montgomery County, we're probably looking at mid-June before the government center will be back open for the public.
Kevin, our courts got started up again this past Monday. We're looking at probably the June 1st date to get pretty much everything back in play. Like I said, we've kept everything pretty much open. We're just making these changes as we're going forward. It's a lot to change. And I think all of us would agree with fairly small communities, small governments. That's one of the big things, is trying to keep your employees apart and do all the safety measures. Because if you have someone that would be ill or have a family member that's ill, which we've had occur in a few places, we want to make sure that we don't close everything completely down because we have to put everybody on quarantine for some kind. So we've got to be real careful and plan out, real carefully how we get open back up again.
Christiansburg's looking at opening our town hall early to mid-June also. So we're looking approximately same time frame. Of course, recreation facilities, aquatic center will be longer time frame.
Very similar in Blacksburg. Council will start holding public hearings again June 9th. So we will have socially distanced council chambers and allow people to come back in. Our staff is working, and many in the office, some from home. But of course, at local governments, a lot of our staffs are public works crews, police officers, folks that have to provide service in person. And those folks have been working all through this. And I really appreciate their efforts. And I know that all of my colleagues appreciate the efforts of their staffs as well. But I do think the citizens will start seeing things get more back to normal, start to be able to actually come into our buildings again. But even once our buildings reopen, there's still a lot of things that can be accomplished over the phone and online, and we'll still encourage people to use those avenues rather than coming in person if they don't have to.
Our staff has continued to work through the entire process. We have had a few that work from home, but we do anticipate opening up to the public on the 26th. We actually have a Board of Supervisors meeting tomorrow night to get official approval of that, but that's when we anticipate that moving forward.
Mark, you talked about this just briefly there in your comments about social distancing in council chambers. How do you all envision local government elected bodies functioning differently in the future?
Well, I think over the last couple of months, we've tried a little bit of everything. We've done socially distanced meetings. We've done fully electronic meetings. And I think you look across the New River Valley and look across the country, there's a lot of local governments that have done things in a lot of different ways. One of the factors that we have to deal with is there's public meeting laws in every state that have certain requirements on how you have to conduct a public meeting. So we're having to work within those, but also be creative and use technology to keep people safe. I do expect the General Assembly will probably be looking at some tweaks to public meeting laws in the future to in case we're in a situation like this ever again. I think the meetings, we of course do want them to function as normally as we can. But I think when you enter the council chambers, you'll see seats that are blocked off. We'll have people spaced out. You'll see council spread out up on the dais. We'll have overflow seating out into our lobby. Fortunately, I think the public hearings that we have coming, we probably won't have too large of a crowd in the room for those. But we're also going to work to put out ways that folks can share their comments electronically with the council ahead of the meeting, so that if a individual doesn't feel comfortable coming into the meeting, they know that they can still get their comments to the council and they can still be heard.
Similarly for Radford, it will look like Mark has described. We've done a lot of technology upgrades. I think that's one thing that's come out of this. It's showed all of us that we've needed to significantly change things locally as far as being able to post and get on Facebook and do live programs and get your audio straightened out, things like that. So we've made some changes there, but our council chamber will be separated. We'll keep our members separated out and moving in that process as we graduate from a Zoom platform first couple of weeks of June into hopefully back to regular sessions late in June.
Well, one question that I think is probably in lots of people's minds is the summer events. And in particular, what can people expect for events like 4th of July, fireworks, parades, and other activities? I know that the towns and the city often host big events. What can folks expect this summer?
Christiansburg does still plan on hosting our July 4th celebration, fireworks on Pepper's Ferry Road, same location we've had it the last several years. In regards, we feel that's a safe event because basically people can watch from the cars and practice social distancing if they do set up chairs in parking lots to watch it. In regards to other events, we're just going to basically kind of take a wait and see approach. We're going to plan for those events and try to make measures so that people can meet CDC guidelines if possible. And of course, follow the governor's guidance in regards to reopening. But basically just play the other events by ear according to CDC guidelines and governor's guidance. But we definitely plan on having our July 4th event or for our fireworks.
We're taking ours a step at a time. Of course, one of the big things right now is working with the schools, try to get our seniors graduated. That's been one of the toughest things. Having a senior myself, been a rough go for them, as many of the high schools across the country and also our colleges have been dealing with not having that event. So taking them a little bit at a time. Of course, we're focusing now on July 4th. We're definitely going to have our fireworks event. We're looking to expand that. It's going to be a really, really good fireworks show. We want folks outdoors. We're not going to have the typical gathering in the park. It's just no way to control the number. That event draws 8 or 9,000 people, it's just very, very difficult for us to be able to keep the social distancing there and meet all the needs. So we're trying to work out how we're going to do the visuals as far as the fireworks show goes, but it is on at this point. All of those people are closely tied, but it looks like everybody's kind of worked together and followed suit. So, it looks like we're following the same format throughout the summer. Each locality is working together because we all work together and promote these events. As Jonathan said earlier, the staycation, that's what we want folks to do. Stay here, go to the events, go to our communities, shop, spend some time there.
Very, very similar in Blacksburg to what Radford and Christiansburg are doing. We're still planning on shooting our fireworks and in all likelihood from the same location. That's a good spot where a lot of folks can see them from a lot of different places in town. We're even exploring, do we go to some larger shells this year and get them up a little higher in the air so you can see them from more parts of town. So stay tuned there. Just like Radford, we'll be canceling our traditional music program, but we're also looking, are there some creative things, other things that we can do to make the 4th of July celebration feel like a normal 4th of July celebration here in Blacksburg.
Sounds like there may be a fireworks competition in the works here. Along the same lines of fireworks, 4th of July, people are excited about summer activities. We've also received questions about summer camps. Being a parent of a child that would be looking forward to those, I think this is front of mind for many parents. Any thoughts on the ability to have summer camps this year?
In Christiansburg, we're planning on having our summer camps. We're going to basically try to hopefully have something for the kids to do this summer. I think that does fall within the guidance basically of daycare rather than schools. So it is possible to run those. Basically, we're talking about spacing, things like that. Maybe using multiple rooms for the summer camps and maybe even possibly limiting number of children. But we're definitely looking at continuing when we actually have registration for our summer camps available. If it turns out that we can't have them for whatever reason, we'll certainly refund the money, but we're planning on pursuing ours this summer.
Pulaski County is evaluating it daily. One of the challenges is properly staffing it and understanding what guidelines are going to be in place with whatever phase we're going to be in. So we're more than likely going to be making a lot of decisions about summer activities and programming June 1st. We think we'll be in a much better position to determine what we can and shouldn't do or what we can and should do. So stay tuned. June 1, we'll have a lot more information.
Similar in Blacksburg, I think our staff over the last couple of months have worked on several different options for what programs could look like if we offer them. No final decisions have been made yet, but I would encourage people just to keep an eye out because this crisis is ever changing. We may make announcements on a very short timeline before an actual program may happen. So pay attention to our website and our social media, and we'll be announcing what we're doing later this summer.
Same thing for us. We don't have any public camps, but we do have a number of private ones that are done through our public facilities. Most of the private sector ones are canceling throughout the summer. I think we're through July, up to July at this point. So look at those on our website as well.
I was going to chime in also on that. I would certainly encourage folks to keep an eye on the website. I appreciate what Mark said. It is a daily conversation about certain activities and programs. Montgomery County has an outdoor pool, the Frog Pond. There's some significant challenges in trying to address how to get that open and monitor it. So there may be some decisions on that fairly soon. The other camps and things I know we continue to discuss with our neighboring jurisdictions, and I would just encourage folks to pay attention to the website and notices. We'll let folks know as soon as we know what's going to happen.
I'll chime in again too, and I will say that this group talks 3 days a week, and this is a topic that comes up frequently, and we all feel that it's very important to hold events when we can safely and bring reasons to celebrate to our communities like 4th of July fireworks. provide recreational opportunities for our communities in any way that we can. And that's why we've done a lot of coordination on trails and parks, and how do we provide outdoor recreational opportunities throughout this. And now we're also starting to look at, okay, how do we start to get some normalcy back through some of our camps and programs? So that is a topic that this group does talk about very frequently.
And our Parks and Rec directors and staff, they're from all the different jurisdictions. They're talking and communicating and sharing best practices and making prognostications together and doing a really good job. So we're not only talking, but our staffs are talking too.
Well, as of last Friday, most of Virginia entered phase 1 of reopening, which allows for some expanded business operations and with some limitations in place, of course. One of those is the outdoor dining. We talked a little bit about that a moment ago, but I'm going to dive a little bit deeper here on that. And so outdoor dining being enabled at restaurants, and it appears some state laws such as ABC, they've adjusted somewhat to accommodate for outdoor dining. How are you all working with the businesses on outdoor dining? We had a question that came in just a moment ago about, are you all able to close off streets to allow for dining to spill outside and provide physical distancing? Any creativity to help for outdoor dining?
Yes, we actually have some staff members that are talking to our downtown Blacksburg Incorporated, but also talking to restaurants, looking at how we can expand outdoor dining here. And some of the things we are discussing are potentially closing some streets while traffic is down and allowing outdoor dining to grow into those areas. And as I said, we're also having our staff go out and try to work with the restaurants to make sure that things are spaced out safely and things are done according to the governor's rules. Because we want to, help those businesses get through the summer, and also give our citizens some opportunity to get out of the house and do it in a safe fashion. So I think in Blacksburg over the next few weeks, you may see some of those things start to emerge, but we really want to work with our downtown businesses to make sure that we're doing it in a way that is in their best interest as well.
We're doing a similar. We do have a couple of public areas, our Carson Courtyard and Triangle Lot. We're bringing some additional tables in within the next few days. We should see those additional tables, and we're putting umbrellas on the site to help with some shade. So that should be some good public areas, very close proximity to our restaurants, and get folks outdoors and have some places to enjoy. And we also working with our restaurants, looking at the public space they have available and working with them as they look at parking lot areas and other areas around their businesses to be able to expand and take the most advantage of public spaces they can to serve customers.
Christiansburg's really handling it the same. We're looking at basically trying to expand outdoor dining opportunities for our local restaurants. If they can get the space in, we're certainly willing to work with them to try to accommodate it. So pretty similar. We want them to be open and be successful and have as much business as they can. And if they can expand their outdoor dining to get more customers in, we're certainly open for it.
Great. Well, I'd like to shed some light on positive initiatives as a result of the pandemic. What have you all observed locally that has been inspiring in the COVID response?
I think just the service provision, our fire and EMS police folks have been wonderful out there every day. The sanitation guys, public works, all the different areas. I think everybody has worked at their best, that we've made sure the services have continued. This group has mentioned several times, just us talking 3 times a week, and actually more often than that by the time you had all the subcommittees and the task force committees and all together. And then I would say our staffs, the directors of all of our departments are working well together in areas of recreation, sharing notes in public works areas. I know if any of us have any problems, we talked about water being one of the critical areas. If something happened, that we would try to share operators among us if we needed to make sure that water is continued to be delivered to our citizens and our businesses. So everywhere you've turned, the human element of this has just been wonderful. Our communities and our people have worked very well in unprecedented times.
You often hear that people say in the toughest times, you'll see the best and the worst of people. But I must say, I've only seen the best in people, other than that whole toilet paper thing. But aside from that,
Yeah.
it's been nothing but the best of people. We've had a number of volunteers that have come out and provided meals for first responders. We've had the feeding program in the school, and just a huge number of volunteers that are helping out with that program. We have a program called Senior Check, and we're calling and checking on seniors once a day, some of them once a week, but set up a network to deliver food and supplies, prescriptions, anything we can to try to protect our vulnerable populations. And I have been overwhelmed by the community support for those endeavors, and really can't say enough about the community pulling together. And this group is, in general, wonderful group of people, and it has been a pleasure to work with them all. I think we've all gotten to know each other much better through this process, but I think all those things have been really inspiring. It's been great to watch, and I think, there's a lot of negatives that have come out of this, but there's also been a lot of positives. I think, all of us probably appreciate things we didn't used to as much.
Absolutely. There's been so many cool stories that have come out of this crisis. I've heard stories about their barbers being tipped, tipping their barbers even without a haircut, and so many different tip stories. One of the coolest ones I heard recently, someone gave me a call and asked if it was okay for them to meet the sanitation workers, the guys on the back of the trash truck at the end of their driveway. When they came and picked up the trash, they had a gift for them. And they had personally made cards to these guys and put cash in the cards. And I didn't check policy. I just said, yeah, I think that would be okay. And it's something that they really wanted to do. And they took the time to realize how important otherwise unimportant functions or things that the services that they're getting that they don't think about every day, how important those services are and who provides those services. And so it's a reflection, or we're all self-reflecting on what's important and what's not important. I think we're really surprised at what we're finding is, and we're hearing stories about that all over the place. And it was cool that that they recognize our sanitation workers as really part of the front lines in responding to COVID.
Kevin, there is something that I wanted to build off of what Chris had said, and going back to this group and the group effort that we've seen working together through this pandemic. It's just been, incredible to see the work that's come out of this from so many different places across the New River Valley, whether it be fire, rescue, law enforcement. Every day that we're out there, we have anywhere from 8 to 10 different law enforcement agencies that come out from across the New River Valley. And to see that work come together, and for all these groups to just be pushing for the best, has been awesome to see.
Well, thanks for sharing those stories. I'm sure we'll continue to be inspired by the community.
Kevin, I had a couple in Floyd that had happened. One is we have a local company that produces very high-end bed linens. Of course, obviously their sales have not been very high during this time. So they teamed up with another local company here that manufactures the N95 filtration material, and they have started making masks. So we're hoping that may be a new business adventure for both of them. Then that same company also provided some of their excess material to the county, and we distributed it out to various groups in the county, like some of the church groups and different folks that were making masks at home. So they turned around and gave all those masks to us to distribute out to our employees, and especially our law enforcement, fire, and EMS. We really appreciated that. So you never know what will come out of some of those collaborations.
Oh, that's great. How have you all seen local government innovate during this situation?
Well, our operations really in every aspect of our operations have changed. We've had to do a lot more electronic, obviously, as we're doing this tonight. But even operations like our transit system, they're a system that carries 4.5 million passengers a year. Typically, when Virginia Tech is in session, they're anywhere from 20,000 to 25,000 passengers a day. They quickly had to ramp down to about 300 to 400 a day. And they had to figure out, number one, how do we keep our drivers safe? How do we change our service? They went fare free, started loading the bus from the rear, but also they kept those critical services on the road because the folks that are riding transit now are folks that need that transportation. So that's just one example. I think you could go to really every one of our government operations and look at how they've innovated and changed, as the private sector has too. I think you look around our business communities and you've seen every business innovate and change the way they do business to keep serving their community. So that's something that going back to the previous question, I think that's what I'd like to see. I've enjoyed seeing over the last couple months is the amount of innovation that we've been seeing from businesses, from nonprofits, and from local governments.
Like Mark said, well, we have had to basically adjust how we do business. Obviously, we're doing a lot more telecommuting, a lot more Zoom meetings, and we've had to make adjustments to our public meeting processes. Our farmers markets have all had to change the way they operate. A lot of them are operating on a drive-through, basically a call-ahead order system, so you can drive through, pick up, and you have to obviously have social distancing in place if you are going to have a live farmers market. So it's just a lot of things to consider. Obviously, parks and recs are closed right now. We were doing extra cleaning on our facilities, our playgrounds when they were open, things like that. So definitely a lot of changes for us.
I did hear when David was talking about technology and things that they were looking to do. We've taken a hard look at technology in Montgomery County as well by working virtually and doing a lot of these Zoom meetings. We've really taken a look at once we get out of this situation with the pandemic, maybe some of these things that we're doing now are going to help make us more efficient, help us better serve the citizens. It's unfortunate that we got pushed into some of this in the way we've had to deal with it very quickly, but honestly, sometimes government's a little slow to change the way we do things, and it's been an opportunity to step back and look at what we're doing. And I'm very hopeful that when we're done with this, with some of the changes in technology and whatnot, it should make for more efficient service for the citizens, which is what we're all about.
I think also one of the things that's happened, or many things that you don't see, we've made a number of changes in behind the scenes technology just to protect from cyber invasions and things like that, for protecting our records and that kind of information. I think as this pandemic gets started, there was evidence that some of that was trying to go on early. So a number of different things have changed there. So I think we've had to look all the way across the board at everything associated with technology, to the way we meet, to the way we interact with the public. And as Craig said, it's going to be a different way. And, I think some of it is improving some efficiency as well. There's not a reason that people need to come to your building every day if you can handle things from afar and meet with them through Zoom or have another meeting. It's certainly saved taxpayers on gas money and all of the traveling that has needed to go on. And we've still been able to maintain training, and a lot of these companies that do the training for our governments have stepped up and been able to still be able to provide that service for us as well.
Great. Well, we have about 10 minutes left, and I have a few more questions I want to get in front of this group so our audience can hear your responses. Can you all describe the economic impact that you're observing right now on local governments, and what are some current strategies for addressing those budget impacts?
Kevin, I can start with that. I know in Montgomery County and the two towns, especially for the two towns in the county, meals taxes, hotel occupancy taxes have taken a big hit. Those are very dramatic hits on the two towns. I'll let Mark and Randy speak to the specifics. In Montgomery County itself, The biggest concern we have right now is sales tax and what's going to happen with that. Our biggest expenditure in the county budget is public schools. So we're very closely watching the sales tax information and also working very closely with the schools to keep an eye on how that may impact them going into the new fiscal year. One of the things the Board of Supervisors did, working with the Treasurer's Office, is agreed very early on, and I know several of others have done this as well. The board did not change the due date of the real estate taxes. Our real estate taxes in Montgomery are due twice a year, one of those dates being June the 5th. They did not change the due date. However, they did agree that if someone is unable due to a hardship to pay by the due date on June 5th, to, in essence, give a 90-day grace period up until September 3rd, where no penalty or interest would be assessed on those real estate taxes. So that was just one way that our local government tried to work with citizens who may be encountering a hardship right now. And I know we're not the only ones that have taken actions like that. I know the towns looked at mills and occupancy taxes. I'm sure others would want to speak to that as well, but trying to be very cognizant of the impact on our citizens and taking a hard look at our budgeting and how that may be affected.
You mentioned the impact on the towns, and I think the towns probably do feel it a little harder budget-wise when it comes to the impact, just because typically towns do depend on mills, transient lodging, things like that a little more in our budgets than counties and cities. Give you an example for town of Christiansburg. If you look at sales tax, meals tax, transient lodging, and BPAL, that accounts for 46.4% of our operating budget. And for Blacksburg, it was 39.3%. So, obviously huge portion of our operating budget. We've got the impacts because we don't have visitors to the area that are normally coming in for graduations, sporting events, and anything like that. Plus our region also kind of gets a double impact because you've got approximately 40,000 college students between Radford and Virginia Tech who largely didn't come back into the community because of online classes. So you've kind of taken them out of the economy, out of shopping, dining, and everything else in the community. So it's obviously pretty huge impact for all of us without the students and also without the accompanying visitors for the universities and just travel in general. I know Christiansburg's pretty heavily invested in sports tourism between the Aquatic Center and our Harkrader Sports Complex. And obviously right now we aren't able to hold events at those. So we're kind of feeling impact to our revenue from those facilities too. So like I say, just kind of huge impacts all across the New River Valley. And I think the New River Valley is maybe a little more heavily invested in tourism than other localities. We have a lot of natural beauty between the Blue Ridge Parkway, the National Park, the New River. So we do have a lot to offer, but when people aren't traveling, they can't come and appreciate it.
One of the challenges is preparing for the unknown and preparing a budget. We were in budget season and looking at projected revenue loss. No one really has a proven model yet. We just make some presumptions and try and plan and prepare for that. But what consequence that has is delayed in a lot of capital outlay, which for local governments, those are investments back into the community, and those investments are going to be delayed. We're challenged with continuing the high level of quality service with reductions in operations. We may have to make personnel adjustments with respect to freeze filling positions and a variety of other adjustments that we have to make. We're going to be funding our NGOs in a different way, probably quarterly versus upfront annually. There's a lot of adjustments local governments are going to have to make because of the unknown. There's some things we do know, but it's all those other unknowns that we have to prepare for those and try and figure out how to lessen the impact of potentially a lot of lost revenue to the localities.
Hey, Randy mentioned the impact of the universities on our region, and of course Blacksburg. It's a huge impact here. When you look at our population, about 2/3 of our population is college students, and as the students didn't return from spring break, they went online. Of course, a lot of those students didn't return, so we had the stay-at-home order that the rest of the state and really the rest of the country was dealing with, but we also had a big chunk of our population that just wasn't here to patronize our businesses that were still open for delivery and takeout. And then, as Jonathan mentioned, it is challenging to plan for what's going to happen in the next year. I think we all kind of got a handle on the remainder of this fiscal year. We kind of know where we are. But going into the next year, there's just a lot of unknowns as to what's going to happen, how this pandemic's going to evolve, but also what decisions are going to be made by the two universities about what the next school year looks like, and then how are they going to have to react to how this pandemic plays out. So we've all had to do a lot of scenario planning around what our budget looks like for next year. I think we all have a pretty good handle on it. We all have good strategies for how to deal with it. But it is going to be something that's going to be a fluid situation that we're going to have to keep our eye on. We're all hoping for the best, of course. So hopefully things will start to gradually normalize, but we also have to prepare for what else may happen.
I would echo what Mark had said. City of Radford, half our population is Radford University students. So when they're gone, we've had an extended summer where we're used to seeing June, July be somewhat slower. That's now extended almost 4.5 months. And we've got a good handle on the end of the fiscal year, but looking to that next fiscal year is going to be tough as it affects sales, meals, lodging, and then all these events have been canceled. And then the events associated with the universities, not having graduation and not having the concerts and things that they have in the springtime, then is also compounded in our restaurants and in our hotels and motels. So the university is very important driver in our economy. Just looking at utilities, Radford's a little different than others because we own our own electric company, provide the water system that we have. We've been looking back, and electric usage is the lowest it's been in nearly 4 decades. So those kinds of things do impact us, and we do a transfer from the electric fund over to our general fund to help that in that support. We're fortunate that meal, sales, and lodging is about 12% of our revenue base, but those other things and that combined can add up significantly when you're talking about $25 million in your general fund.
What are you all doing to support businesses right now? Jonathan earlier talked about staycation. Certainly, spending some money locally is important. What else are you all doing to support businesses locally?
Kevin, I think you've already heard discussions about Work Smart information that's been distributed. That was an outstanding document. The CDC finally came out with a document today, and whatever guidance is in there will be inserted. But we've also been working on a business continuity team. And the concept there is wraparound services, technical services that businesses will need once they open, should they have a positive test with one of their employees. And that's everything from manufacturing. A manufacturing or an industry can't just stop a line for 2 or 3 days because they have someone test positive on the line. So the concept would be that we would have a team that could go in and sanitize a facility and then certify that it's been cleaned. They could test employees. And then there would be a technical advisory group headed up by a doctor or a medical director who could provide best practices for that particular business. And we talk about industry, but then if you have a small mom and pop's business, and they have an employee that tests positive, it really could literally ruin their business. How long will it be before the public has enough trust to go back into that facility? So the idea is to make this available to everyone. So this business continuity team would be available 24/7, almost like a telemedicine. You pick up the phone, a business owner can call and get information, or if they need assistance there with sanitization of their facility, whatever that they would need, that full wraparound service would be available to them. So we think that's really important as we open up. And we want to create confidence in consumers, and we want to, we want the community to know that there are very competent people looking out for their safety, and give business owners, a sense of security too, that it's okay to open. It's okay. There's someone out there to help you interpret, and again, provide those best practices, because as we know, there's a lot of information out there, a lot of misinformation, and a lot of it's very hard to comprehend. And everyone's business is different. The floor plan's different, the layouts are different. So getting that adequate information into the hands of business owners is important. Our health department is doing that currently, but once we really open up, there's just not enough of them, and we don't want to overwhelm them. They have a job to do as well, and we don't want to overwhelm them with those type of calls. So that the business continuity team should fill that role very well, and that has come out of our consortium of counties that have come together here under the task force. So we hope that'll be a really good asset for the group and for the entire New River Valley.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Chris.
In Christiansburg, our town council adopted a resolution basically setting penalty and interest at 0% for meals and lodging tax. That kind of, I guess, in order to help our restaurants and hotels, I guess, kind of make it through this. Basically, they wouldn't have to pay, at least with concern for paying penalty and interest for the months of March, April, and May. And we did something similar in regards to water billing also.
Pulaski County did the same thing through our Commissioner of Revenue's office, and the Board of Supervisors, as Craig was mentioning, also lowered that penalty and interest for real estate taxes due June 5th. It's important to denote that that's probably the most universal response we could have. It's everyone who pays taxes, and that's citizens and small businesses and large businesses. Effectively, all the escrows will pay. Anyone who wants to pay and can pay should pay, because local governments need cash flow too. But it's not taking advantage of anyone who finds themselves in a position because of this crisis unable to pay. We're not going to enjoy any penalty or interest from that. We're also, I think everyone in the New River Valley, we're also working with the Virginia Small Business Financing Authorities to defer loan payments through our economic development departments. Any kind of micro loan programs or revolving loan programs that we have, we're working with our businesses to defer some loan payments as well. Anything that we can do to support them and basically buoy them for a period of time until the state allows us to reopen and allows them to continue to do business and conduct commerce. So we're being very responsive. There's not a lot of cookie cutter things that we're doing. We're really trying to respond specifically to what the New River Valley businesses need to get through this time. And there's a lot of best practices out there that my colleagues are employing and I'm gleaning from. And my respect has increased so much for the creativity from each of these the communities in the New River Valley and how they're responding to the business community's needs.
Great. Well, thank you all. And we've gone a little bit over, and no one on this panel is unfamiliar with working overtime. So appreciate the extra time that you all put in tonight and the extra time that you put in every day serving your communities. The community's done a great job yet again, submitting thoughtful questions for our panel that spurred great conversation. And I want to thank each of our panelists for joining us. We also apologize for the loss of our sign language interpreter midway through our session this evening due to technical difficulties, but we will have a summary of tonight's town hall be available on montva.com/NRV town hall. We have summaries there as well from previous town halls, and we'll have tonight's posted. I'd also like to express my appreciation for the service that's delivered by all of our local government employees to communities across the New River Valley on a daily basis. As we look to the future, the Public Health Task Force, they're creating a playbook to help everyone in the New River Valley navigate the next phase, recovery. This series of virtual town halls is your opportunity to continue that conversation. We invite you to join us each Wednesday at 6 p.m. If you're not able to join live, the series will be archived on YouTube. The links will also be posted to agency websites and social media. The series will also be rebroadcast on local access cable stations, including Comcast and Shintel Channel 190 for Christiansburg and Montgomery County, along with Comcast Channel 2 in Blacksburg. Additional dates and topics for the virtual town hall series include the following: May 27th, local and small business; June 3rd, education, focusing on K through 12; June 10th, education, focusing on colleges and universities. Before we wrap up this evening, I'd like to extend a special thank you to those behind the scenes who are making the virtual town hall series possible. And they are the public information officers who serve local governments, agencies, and higher education institutions in the region. The program this evening would not be possible without their contributions. So thank you and be well.